Friday. This is the last day of the Can Diversity Collective's Inkwell Beach Can Live. We have been going at it since Monday, July 6th, and we have had an amazing time. And we want to thank all of you for joining in for these great sessions, great talks. After everyone, I seem to say, I am so inspired. I am so more well-informed than I was before. And I hope you guys have been getting the exact same feeling. So I'm sure today will be no different. We've got an exciting group that's coming up right after our special video that we have from Auntie Gail, who opened up Cannes Lions in last year when we were actually on the south of France. She was the first one to do our C-suite session with Mark Reed, Jackie Canny, and Monique Nelson from the WPP family. So she, of course, wished we all could be together, but I'm gonna let Gail King tell you hello.
Hello, Inkwell Beach Can people. Boy, what a difference a year makes. You remember where we all were last year? I do. We were strolling down the Boulevard de la Croisette. We were looking in the windows, drooling. You remember, should I buy it? Should I not buy it? Yeah, I'm going to buy it. And then you take it home and go, what the hell was I thinking? Or maybe you didn't buy it and you get home and go, why didn't I buy it? No. That was such a great, great, great time for all of us. Number one, the crowd was great. We all bonded. The topic was so important. And so here we are a year later in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. Who knew that this was going to hit us this way? Listen, we're now even broadcasting from home. Actually, I'm in Oprah's guest house in California, which I have to say is very lovely, but it's not Cannes. It's not Cannes. So I'm so sorry we can't be there again this year. But what I do like is that the conversation started at the Inkwell is still continuing. It's now needed. It's now more important than ever before. And I'm so glad that you all will still continue to discuss, because change is in the air, changes need to be made, and you are the people that can make that happen. So I just wanted to say, glad that you're all getting together. And I'm really, really hoping that this time next year, we'll be back in our happy place. In the meantime, have a great event. Take it easy, stay sane, and stay safe. It's Gail King from CBS This Morning. Bye.
So that was Auntie Gail. We are so excited to have had a great partnership with the CBS Morning team and the CBS crew that helped secure Gail for us. And so thank you for that. So again, this is day 5. We're going to invite our first panel in right now. I'm going to step out. And we're going to allow them to introduce themselves, introduce the panel, but this is one that you definitely want to hear. It's all about making sure that we have diverse people on our production team. So hi, you're coming in, so I'm popping out. I hope you guys have an amazing session, and I will see you at the end.
Thanks so much, Adrienne.
You're welcome.
All right, our panel is coming on board. Hey, everyone, thanks so much for kicking off your day with us, wherever you might be in the entire world. Normally, it would be, you know, the beach time on the the Riviera, so it really wouldn't matter exactly what time of the day it was. But here we are, and we are going to be talking about deliberate diversity in front of and behind the lens. So we have a great crew here. We are going to be talking about casting and improving casting. We're going to be talking about getting people behind the camera, but also improving diversity on crews. And we're going to be talking about how to empower those people once they're actually hired so that they can then actually make good and interesting and authentic work. So first off, let me have our panel introduce themselves. Can we start, please, with Zhu?
Good morning. My name is Zhu Lee. I'm campaign director. I'm sorry if you can hear that background noise, but and for those of you not familiar with the Ad Council, we are a national nonprofit that mobilizes the energy and talents of the communication industry to make a measurable impact on the most critical of social issues today in our country. Some of them are more iconic campaigns you may be familiar with are Smokey Bear and the French Drive Around and Love Has No Labels. And because of who we are, we really recognize we have a huge responsibility when it comes to increasing representation, inclusion, and pushing against stereotypes in our work. And I just want to say on a personal note, being a gay, mixed race, Asian American man, father with 2 adopted daughters, adopted through foster care, look nothing like their dads. It's never really been, and I've never really seen myself in any work. It's so important for me to be part of this change that we're working for here, and I'm just really glad to be included in this discussion today.
Awesome. Let's go down the list. Pamala, hi.
Hey, good morning and good day. I'm Pamala Buzik from Free the Work. Oop. I think, Kenyessa, I think it's coming from your window.
We got a little feedback. We're gonna fix that.
Yeah, a little bit. There we go. Yeah, Pamala from Free the Work. We look for systemic inequalities, create actionable solutions to bring more diversity behind the lens.
That's awesome. And hi, Tamara.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tamara Gardelis. I am an integrated brand strategist at Campbell Ewald. Got 15 years in the industry, marketing and communications. Got my start in the MAPE program, MAPE 4A's program many, many years ago. Since then, I've worked across advertising and marketing in general market agencies like RGA and DDB, and in Black-owned agencies and African-American specific agencies like Spike DDB and Vigilante and Carolyn Jones. Spent some time in the nonprofit sector, the Madison Avenue Initiative, as well as the director of the Amadou Diallo Foundation many years ago, client side as well, on brands like Martell Cognac and Seagram's Gin at spirit industry giants like Pernod Ricard. So I've been dedicated to diversity in the field. I've benefited, from the programs, and glad to be at an agency currently where diversity is key, and they really work towards a sense of belonging for the industry and for the people that work at the company.
It's great. MAPE is a great program.
It is indeed a great program.
And Kenyassa.
Okay, we're going to try this. I don't know if the sound is weird. Is it happening now? My name is Kenyessa McMahon. I'm a director. I've worked with brands such as Nike and Adidas, and Ford. And most recently, I worked on a project with Ford where all of the actresses that were in the pieces were African-American women. There was over 35 women featured in the spots. There's 2 of them. And then on top of that, all of the heads of the departments were mainly women of African-American women, except for the DP that was an Asian woman. And there was one man, Brandon Mendez, who was also PSD, but who was the production designer. Yeah, so I've worked on a lot of projects and, love the work I do.
And I am Ishan Sherwood, Associate Editor at Ad Age. So everyone, hey, I think if there is a moment in time when there's probably the impetus to actually make change, this might be it, sort of in the middle of it. Can we start off by talking about, however, what are some of the challenges that you face in hiring talent and crew, even in this moment, even when you want to improve a situation? Kenyassa, you had talked about, getting more than 30 Black women together to work on one single project. I assume that was difficult, though.
I mean, yes and no. I think that there's when it came to, for example, the ask, there's a challenge in anything when you're talking about getting people on a project. Pamala knows this when it comes to women and opportunities, take out race. A lot of the time when it comes to ads, it's like, well, you need a reel that has, say Ford, you need a car reel. And, I don't have a car project on my reel because I haven't done one. So, you're going to kind of run into a problem where like, we need her to have done a car project. Well, you have to hire me in order to have me have that on my reel. So like, it's just like a circular conversation. And so the same thing comes to finding a African-American DP with a car on her reel. It's just going to be this, we're talking against a wall. And so a lot of it comes to like, what I had to go into that conversation was, hey, like, I'm positive I can do this. It's like, it's not a leap of faith for me. It's not on my reel, but you just have to do it, and so I have confidence in myself. It's not there, but it will be there once I do it. And so in terms of the pulling together the people, I mean, sure, I called Free the Work, I had to say like, hey, like I had to call it top. I called Emma. I was like, Emma, I literally cannot, there's only white men. Like, I'm not doing this, like what? And also on the top of it, not only is there only white men, they can shoot cars. We need people who can shoot women, who can shoot humans. This is going to be a spot about people, and not just people, brown people, which is another limit of lighting. And she was like, hey, I know women, and not only do I know women who can shoot women of color, and I also know women who can shoot cars. And so that's how I got Daisy. And so it's more or less about it being a challenge to find all the women to be in front or behind the camera. Like, the talent is there. It's just knowing and having the people to talk to. Like, you have to know, you have to know who to ask. And I think right now is a great time in the world that you have people and resources to say, Ju, Kamala, Tamara, Ishan, like, where are these people? And it's like, sadly, like, I've been working for 12 years. Like, I'm not like an emerging director. I mean, people are like, oh, where have you been? I'm like, I've done 450 brand films. I'm not
I've been right here. Yeah.
I've actually been working, very busy, not paid a lot, but very busy. So I think that's kind of the talent is there, and frankly, I'm very proud of the Ford project, and I toot my own horn. I don't think anything has ever been done like it in the car space, and I'm positive of that. So I think. So I think in that regard, it was groundbreaking, and I think it was a push, and I made sure for it to be a push because I knew that there was going to be, they were pushing the limits of not only saying, hey, we're going to push it by hiring a Black director or a female director to do this diversity initiative, but also they were promoting that the spot was supposed to be, there's 2 spots, and it's supposed to be, look at all the people we hired. Here's the head of this department. Here's the head of that department. And then the Cryon was going to say, check out what they did online. It was going to direct everyone to the YouTube. And I was like, I want this spot to be so good that they are forced to put it on TV, that it's too good for them to put it on YouTube. Because in my brain, I found it kind of like a challenge. Like, they're going to promote that they hired us, but the work is kind of secondary, when the work should be the leading thing. And then on top of it, be like, oh yeah, by the way, these are the people who did it. Like, yes, I'm a Black woman, but like, I want my work to be the thing that is telling. And so that's what I set out to do, is for it to be, yes, there's a bunch of Black women in this ad, but that anyone who saw it was like, whoa, the cars look amazing and these women are excellent. And then like, oh yes, they're all Black, to be like the second thing you to think about it. And so, that was kind of the challenge. I was like, oh, give me 2 ads, give me a smaller budget. It's going to be better than anything. And that's kind of my way of like slamming through the door for all of us. And also that same to that degree, all the actresses and all the heads of the departments, and also all the men on that set. There was also like 100 men all showed up to support me and to support that cause. They were all doing stuff they had never done before. Even the car techs were like, I've never been asked to do this. I've never had to, you're asking me to pull the car apart in this way. We've never been asked to do this. They all showed up to say, we believe in you in this. And so it was an amazing experience. And I'm really proud of the work, but also proud of Ford and proud of everyone down the line from the agency up for taking the leap. Even though they were scared on set, they were like, ah, they leaped with me. And I think we got a great project out of it and experience for everybody because of it.
Yeah, and I would say also, in addition to what Candace was saying, around finding access, people are there, and I think that's why for us at the Ad Council, it's grateful to be supportive of the efforts and work done by Free the Work and others, and especially the tools that Free the Work has to like help us ensure that we're finding the people, because you said they're there. We just need to access.
Exactly.
Yeah. And access, it's an important topic. I mean, I can speak for Campbell Ewald. I know, we recruit from, Ad Color, and we recruit from MAPE, as well as the HBCUs. But one of the things that we're focusing on is sort of widening the channels that we look for talent. So part of the systemic problem of racism within advertising really comes from pulling talent from the same places. So if you're only going to VCU, or if you're only going to the Miami Ad School, you're limited in the breadth of talent that you have access to. And there's so much talent in the community. So we're now launching programs that pull talent from places that are not traditionally within an advertising channel. So I think that it's important in terms of where you look for these talents and making sure that you broaden the criteria. Not everybody has a reel. Not everybody has a book. That doesn't mean that they're not talented. That doesn't mean that they're not capable, of doing the job. So I think that's an important part too, in terms of finding people, is ensuring that you're not looking in the same places.
And I also give credit to Emma on that too, because when I called, I said, I'm looking for an African-American, DP. There's, and also a woman. And there's, to tell you the truth, there's lots, but there's also not that many, just for a certain degree. There's, say there's 100, and you're getting further and further down. You're on cards, you're doing all this other stuff. And, and so she challenged me back. She goes, all right, like, we're already out, there's women, like, are we going to discriminate amongst our browns? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. No, we're not. I'm going to push. No, we're not doing that. We're actually not. Like, also we're not just, like, at the end of the day, if it ends up being a woman, maybe it's a white woman. Like, if it's that's the right person. And I say, hey, there's going to be 9 Black women, and then there's a white woman, but she's the right woman for the job. It's still, minority, but it's like, in the end, it was the Asian woman was the right woman, for the job. You know what I mean? But I think there's a point in which you kind of have to, sometimes you can even in trying to diversify the group, you can kind of start to even be more localized, and you're just here and you're, breaking up the cause. You're just getting so focused that you're not looking for the best options, and you're also limiting yourself for the best things for yourself and your project, and you're just closing yourself in and stifling the process. So, like I said, big up to Free the Work for challenging.
We can never get to the point where we're sort of worrying about, like, oh, it's a token white person. Like, that will be a lot of progress.
He's like, it's cool for the. He's like, I'm down for token white person.
We can flip it around for a little while. It's fine. It's fine. It's interesting, Tamara. Like, the barriers that you're talking about feel a lot to me like what Kenyessa is talking about. Like, she doesn't have a car reel. You didn't go to portfolio school, but how do you get into portfolio school if you don't have experience? But how do you get the experience if you don't go to portfolio school? Exactly. So speaking of, like, places to find people, Pamela, is Free the Work getting more interest recently in people just trying to expand their rosters?
Yeah, we've been ringing the bell for a while. So suddenly there is a very big uptick. It's a tough situation sometimes to be in, because you want to make sure that people are doing it for the right reasons and they're not just doing it right now. And so, but a lot of what we do is we, before we let you pledge, we kind of talk to you about what is your commitment. What are you looking to do? And what kind of agency are you? Where are you in your process? Where are you in your D&I initiatives? Whatever it might be. So we really kind of customize every pledge to every type of brand, every type of agency, because we're really looking for a strong commitment, and we're going to hold you accountable because that's what you're asking us to do. So for us, it's really about discovery, exposure to creators. It's that, again, like we were all saying, like, you have to open your mind to what lack of opportunity looks like, and also change your habits. You've got to be following us on Instagram. You got to be checking the website, because you can't just do it 5 minutes before you need directors or 5 minutes before you need editors. It doesn't make any sense. Accountability, because we do have tracking, and then it comes down to just making, holding the company accountable and keeping on track of it.
And you can't do it 3 months after you really needed to be looking for somebody, because you're like, oh no, everybody.
Yeah, and things will get in the way. Things will always get in the way. Time, we didn't have enough time on this. I'm on 4 other projects. I've never worked with this person. And it's like Kenyessa said, it's like, you've got to kind of expand and change the way you look at things and the way you work. And even if you're in that 5-minute crunch and you didn't do the homework, then you've really got to stop and say, hold on, we're not just going to rush into this. And what if we took that pool of people that you have a short list of and just took it away? What would you do then? So that's a lot of what we work with. And as we continue to expand the database into more below the line crew members, it just we continue to learn and approach different elements of the industry. And we really try to do the top down and also the bottom up, and try to, get everybody to understand where the systemic issues are, because it's all along the pipeline.
Let's get into some of the nitty gritty of casting in front of the camera. Zhu, I know you have some thoughts about this in terms of like how specific can you get when you want a particular look, or you want to make sure that like an ensemble cast is diverse enough.
Absolutely. So I think that a lot of times people think that diversity, inclusion, representation showing up in the work that we do really relies solely on the casting specs and the casting selection. And so yes, 100% at the beginning, it's a huge part, and you got to be thinking through from the start, who am I not seeing show up in my own work and out there in general? Because that's going to start us down the road and down the path for more inclusive work. So you can lay out what's missing. But I really think that also, to be truly meaningful, we need to continually be questioning and looking at these choices and what these choices that we're making, what are they communicating? And doing that through the entire production process. And because what happens is you might have some unintended stereotypes that we might be reinforcing, even with well-intentioned casting options, for example. If it's okay, I'd love to share an example of this. We produced a spot with Campbell Ewald for our fatherhood involvement campaign. It's a Dance Like a Dad spot. For this campaign, we had a very broad target audience. It's dads, right? Like it's big, very diverse. And with very small production budgets, you have to make choices. And it oftentimes comes down to one spot. And what can you do with that? And we're really thinking through how can we push here using these creative production opportunities to show dads that we don't see all the time, or setting up scenarios that are pushing against false narratives, which is actually something I'd love to come back to in a little while. But if we can show the spot, it's a 30-second.
I thought this dad had moves.
Oh, it's coming. Actually, if Kanisha, can you drop out real quick? There you go.
I promise it's worth it.
So hard, I punch in my car. I got this feeling that time's still holding me down. Now I gotta cut loose.
So,
is that not how you're supposed to dance?
Well, if you're a dad. But so what we knew right off the bat here is that we wanted to show some sort of a blended mixed family. And so for that dance spot that you saw, when we were looking at the casting specs and how we wanted to pull it together, we knew that the dad and daughter combo we're going to see mixed race parents. And our hero dad was clearly the gentleman we cast. The moment we saw him, we knew he was a kind of goofy dad who isn't a dancer, but is doing his best and throwing himself all in. And so he had to be in the spot. So we locked in that we were going to have a Caucasian dad. So the daughter callbacks were going to be not Caucasian. And one of our top choices was this adorable young Black girl who had amazing moves, great dancer. And on paper, that pairing was exactly what we wanted. It would have delivered a really sweet and fun moment between a father and a daughter, showing that mixed family, just like we had put in the specs. And it was a diverse cast, in something that we're not seeing all the time. But it would unfortunately have leaned into a stereotype when we were looking at that choice and that pairing. We didn't want to show a little Black girl who could dance paired with a white dad with no rhythm. So again, it was something that we had to look at a point after specs were locked, assessing that choice and what it was communicating. And then again, we ended up going with the young lady, the Asian girl that you saw on the spot. Again, great character, great moves. But as I said, it's a process of constantly evaluating our choices. And when we were on set, we had to work out how we were going to get her on into the scene. And, you know, we have 30 seconds here. And so it had to be a fast read. And the easiest storyline was that she was coming home from school. And to communicate that quickly would have been put her in a uniform, put a backpack on her, she walks in the door and you're there. And yes, that setup again would have worked, but it leaned one more time into that another stereotype, that academic Asian trope. But as you saw, we found a solve. Right? We really did create a moment that communicated what we wanted without reinforcing unintended stereotypes. And all of that was possible because we had frank conversations on set and took the time. And I really think that that is an important point, is that throughout the process, and to your initial question, Yishan, you need to talk. And having diverse crews be in front and behind the camera, people who are thinking through what are we actually communicating beyond a written spec is really an important point.
I thought the result was great. That dad looks like my dad and that little girl looks like my sister. So it was really cool to see. How specific can you get in the casting specs? Like, Tamara, can you talk about this? Like, you know, can you say we are specifically looking for, you know, a Caucasian male, you know, 40s, and then, you know, specifically a particular kind of daughter?
I think Kenyasa may be better suited to speak on casting, but I can say that, you know, from an advertising standpoint, you know, first to what you were saying, Drew, about the process. I think that it actually starts even before the director, even before the crew comes in. It really has to be, you know, throughout the creative process, which for me as a strategist starts with strategy. So that's before creatives get, almost before, creatives even get involved. Who are we targeting? What are the insights that we can bring to the table? But for diversity to work, it has to be part of the overall process. So to your question, I mean, how specific do we get? And then, Kenyasa, I'll pass the mic, you know, as it relates to specific calls that you put out. But advertising often, you know, works on demographics or stereotypes. So we'll say something like we're targeting moms between the age of 24 and 36. We're targeting African-American men between the age of 50, you know, and 65. You know, and that's a double-edged sword. You know, it's something that we look at the advertising industry, and we're trying to reconsider as a whole in terms of using psychographics a bit more. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword. But you know, it's so from an advertising point of view, it's perfectly allowed to say what you're looking for. But you know, part again, as it relates to the process, is that diversity is included, you know, early on. You know, so this isn't concepting. This is in the original, you know, original concepting, original drawings of what the commercial will look like, the original scripts. You know, we need to ensure that we're writing these voices in and writing these people in. So behind the scenes, you know, we can speak very specifically to race, culture, you know, ethnicities. But I believe it's different once you get to casting. Kenyasa?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, I'm not a casting director. I do know that I've been told that sometimes you can't be, you know, that I have to be more broad when I'm specific. I recently have cast a few things, and I'm like, you know, I'll back up. I tend to cast things like my family. I'm in an interracial relationship. I've been with my husband who's white for 16 years, and I have a white presenting son. So, you know, and my family and my friends all seem to look that way. So when I go into the world and when I'm casting families or crews, or, you know, everyone seems to look and feel that way. And I do sometimes even have to check myself on that. Like, not every, you know, does every couple in this spot have to be like some interracial? That's what it ends up happening, because that's just the way that I see the world. And, you know, to Yishan's point, like, is that the worst thing that could ever happen, that every couple is an interracial couple? Maybe not, you know, but from now on, but, you know, that's just what it tends to happen with me. But I know that it's not, you know, particularly the best thing to be so specific. And I have found that sorry, I got a little lost. That happens sometimes. It's early. Is that like, for example, just to back up, I know that when I was working on Ford, one of the things we had put into that was in the casting call was they wanted a woman in the spot to be wearing a hijab, which is there's Black Muslim women. But when we did the casting, we would ask women when they came in, "Oh, are you Muslim?" And it was like, no, they were just women who were coming in with like a scarf on their head. And I was like, okay, guys, like behind the scene, I'm like, okay. And then one woman came in and she was wearing, and I'm like, "Are you Muslim?" She said, "No." She's like, "But I'm from East, I don't remember where she was. I think West, she was like from West Africa. And she's like, "No, but I'm wearing this scarf because it's from the specific place I'm from in Africa. And you can actually tell where you're from because of the pattern on it. And this is the way you wrap it." And we were like, oh. And we remembered that story. She's like, "And this is how you would wear it in Africa. And if people see this, they'll know exactly which town I'm from." And I was like, okay, now we went from this would actually be appropriation, even though we're trying to be representative here by saying we want to show that there's Black Muslims. It feels icky, even though it's going to be a split second. The woman is in the spot for blink and you'll miss her kind of. But, it seems icky to have someone playing a Muslim that's not a Muslim. Then how do we know we're putting on a hijab? It's going to be on right. It just gets icky. But if she's coming and she's wearing something in the appropriate way, representing, also being in America, representing her actual hometown and being able to do that in a Ford spot, that all of a sudden becomes really powerful, right? And it doesn't become appropriation or become representing like a Muslim thing. And similarly, in that same situation, we had a setup that we wanted to share a variation of complexions, and there was an ask for we wanted a redheaded African American woman who was going to skew. Obviously, if they're red hair, they're going to skew pale, which reminds me of my son, who's red hair and pale skin. And we had it was written down. We needed a redheaded African American woman, which we know what we're asking for. But even in a room where we had African American agency, myself, there was 4 Black people in there. We had to check our own biases because when we had people coming in mixed groups, they weren't all for the different roles coming in groups. When one woman came in who was white presenting, we were like, who is this lady? And why is she kind of in here? And right off the bat, we kind of had this like knee-jerk reaction. Even me with my white presenting child was like, And I was like, she's really uncomfortable. And why would she come to this call for Black women if she wasn't a Black woman? This is crazy of us to have this reaction. And at the end, she walked out. I was like, guys, we need to check ourselves. Get on her Instagram. And immediately we saw that she was actually a titan of musical industry's granddaughter. I'm like, I'm not like Black. She's like very Black. But I was like, but you find out that like even within your own race and your own ask, like we specifically made a call for a Black woman with red hair, knowing what that means, knowing what that's probably.
But during her audition, you didn't say, Are you Black?
Are you white?
Right.
No. Like I said, everything about how she read as a Black woman. There was not there was just still this moment, and maybe it's the Rachel Dolezal effect that like maybe there's. But I said those are the things these are the things you have to do because you're thinking, that was the ask. Like, hey, then there became the other part of like, is she too pale? Because now we're doing this thing. We're going to have all these Black women. Is it going to throw people out of it to feel like, oh my gosh, and then there's this one white woman? And I'm like, is it gonna, we could actually, maybe this is a good time to maybe show it. There's so many women in this spot. I don't even think you can notice that there's 30. They come so fast and they actually repeat themselves in different outfits. But I thought it was really important to show as many variations of what a Black woman is. And for me, having, the way I talk, the way I'm I thought it was for me like really important to make sure that there was as many faces. I made sure that there was I made sure that I got everyone's faces in. I deliberately made the girls I would make them wink or look in the camera. Even the background girls, each one of them has a moment, and they're I'm really proud of that. Other people won't notice it, but they look or they wink or they're in the background, and I'm because I wanted each one of their faces to be seen, and I wanted there to be every little girl to be able to see there's a bigger girl, there's a darker girl, there's a girl with a fro, there's a girl with braids, there's a light girl, light skinned girl that's tall with braids. It's not just straight hair with straight hair with twists. It's like a light girl with twists. There's like every variation. There's a redheaded girl with freckles, but she's, you know, like there's all the variations. And you know, and that, you know, that there was going to be a lot of variety in that. And so, but also, like I said, even myself, even seeing basically my son walk in the door, I had, my biggest fear is that people would react that way, that I still did that. You still have to kind of recognize, even in a diverse room, you're just like, stop yourself. But yes, I think, yeah, I mean, if you see the spot, you'll see there's, it was really even challenging in a diverse space to do that, but I feel like we did it.
Yeah, we're queuing up the video, but go ahead, Ju.
Oh, and I say, and what I loved about that anecdote in that story is that the question you're asking is, can we be specific? Yes.
Yeah.
If you're being intentional and you're really putting in the work and thought before, what are we trying to do? And you very specifically were trying to show a range, right? The diversity of Black women. And so you needed to be specific about what you want to put in there, and you were able to do that. And I think that is so great when you're thoughtful up front. Same way Tamara was saying with the strategies in advance.
Okay, we're working on the video, but in the meantime, can we talk a bit about how do you balance what might feel to some people sort of like box checking, but then at a certain point, you kind of do need to audit yourself and see like how fair or diverse you have actually been being, yes?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'll jump in there. I think, yes, 100% you need to be accountable. And you had mentioned Free the Work having sort of tool to help you sort of track that, but be really paying attention, because there are places where you can do better and where you are showing you are truthfully doing the work to bring this stuff forward. And just as we were saying, you know, if you think about it in advance and really and know what you want to put out there, it's okay to show it and track it.
Yeah, Pamela, can you talk about accountability tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I was also going to say it's context too. You know, in what context is this person being seen? How are they written into the script? All of those different things you have to account for. You know, and I think there's also some kind of relatability behind the camera with that as well. And understanding, you really, as a director, and Ken Yesen knows this, and you know, as a director, you really have to be exposed to so many different cultures and things that are happening in the world to really be able to apply that to who are you directing and what is the context in which they're in. So I think that these are really important steps. I think overall, you know, it is really, we were really careful to not check boxes. I'm going to pop out, I think, oh no, they're almost queuing it up now. But yeah, I mean, the accountability is really, really important to continue looking at. I'm going to let Laura jump in here.
Phenomenal doesn't just happen. It's designed with intention, assembled with care, and even still, to bring it all to life takes a sprinkling of magic. Introducing the unmistakably new 2024 The Skip, built phenomenally.
I think you're muted there.
Wait, Kenyasa, your audio.
I said I sent you guys the wrong commercial. I'm sorry. That was behind the scenes one.
It was still a great commercial.
I apologize, but there was another one with more girls in it. Sorry about that. But yeah, there was another link, but what can we do?
Add on to one question you had earlier, which was, you know, by saying what you want, I think it's also really important that we consider saying what we don't want and people we don't want in specific roles. I think there is a place for that, and being okay to say that. And an example came up on a production I had recently where we had a student who was basically being told to keep quiet. And I knew I did not want a woman or a person of color in that role. So I wrote into the spec, do not have that be cast in that place. Otherwise it's open, because I wouldn't want to have an unintentional takeaway that we were silencing women in that space, especially in education. So I think it's important to think through what the role is too, and say what you don't want.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting just in this conversation talking about how, you know, you're examining your own biases as well. And this doesn't just go for like men and white people, like, you know, BIPOC people, LGBTQ people have internal biases as well, because we, you know, we live in a structurally racist society. So can we talk a bit about like accountability throughout the entire process? You know, we sort of mentioned that like you don't want to get into a situation where the ad's basically done and then someone out of the blue goes, oh, wait a minute, hold on, like this reads poorly, or like it turns out there were no women involved. Who noticed? I didn't.
Yeah. And again, you know, to that point, you know, accountability and diversity, it really starts much earlier, you know, than when people show up to set, you know, so the creative process is a very long one. As I said before, it really, and maybe I'm a bit biased to say it starts with strategy, but it starts with strategy, you know, and the consumer insights that we bring to the table to be able to give, you know, context. So it starts inside of an advertising agency. So at Campbell Ewald, you know, we work really hard to create a sense of belonging, to have a transparency about the work that we do as it relates to diversity, to D&I. There's a lot of trainings, a lot of bias trainings, a lot of opportunities for, you know, different cultures to speak. We've got book clubs, we've got series that we do that are specifically aimed to address, you know, systemic bias and implicit biases. So the conversation has to be one that, you know, continues. It doesn't start at the casting. You know, it starts well before, you know, the process, well before really even an ad is on the table to be produced. It has to be within the culture of the agency that it's born from, to ensure, you know, that there's the nuances that are necessary, the understanding that's necessary, and the interest and the passion to ensure that the product that we put out is one that's reflective, you know, of the consumers of the country, you know, and working for the positive and for the good of all society.
So I think that they popped out because they're like it's so hard, you know, no one can do it but us men. I'm like, I can light an apple. It's a shiny apple. Like, you know, but can you light a Black woman?
Yeah.
So to that point, then, you know, we hopefully are getting to a place where, you know, there are people of color in the room, there are women in the room, but I think we've seen from, you know, Kendall Jenner Pepsi spot, like I know for a fact there was at least one Black person in the room at the green light meeting for that who didn't feel like they could speak up. Because they weren't empowered enough to say like, actually, I don't think we should run this, and this is a bad idea. Right. So, you know, how important and how do you go about empowering people once they are in the room to be able to say, can you answer to your point, like, no, this is how I want to make the spot because that's authentic and real, and that's what you hired me for, or so you say.
You know, I can speak from the agency side. You know, I think a lot of it is education, making sure that the teams, again, the responsibility doesn't just fall on one or two people, that it's a culture. And so, you know, across the entire, you know, chain, across the entire process, people feel accountable, you know, for the end product as it relates to diversity, but also, you know, empowerment in terms of creating that sense of belonging. You know, the sense that you are part of something that's bigger than yourself, and that you have the space and the trust to speak up. So I think that has a lot to do with the culture that's created. I'm sure there's the same feeling on set. You know, the empowerment in a sense of belonging to the culture, that you have the space to speak and speak your truth. So again, as empowerment, you know, I always feel like it's really rooted in the culture that's created.
I think the other part is like, oh, sorry.
You're good.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, not everything is made for everyone, and I think I made a documentary that actually they won a Clio, despite everyone's getting in there and messing with it. But throughout the process, I was the only. It was a documentary about a young Black woman, and I'm a Black woman. And there were things when they were trying to edit it down to make it shorter because blah, 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 blah. Rules. It's going to be on YouTube. Who cares? But they needed it to be shorter. And when we were going through the process, there were these things they wanted to cut out. And it was a room of white people. And they would say, one of the comments was, let's just cut out all the gospel music. Like, no one wants to listen to that music. I was like, no. I was like, well, she grew up in the church and, she's doing pop music and, like she feels kind of conflicted about this because she's only ever, okay. And then, and I'm like, which I push back on, but, then also they'd say things like, well, I don't understand this section. Why would people, she just grew up poor, why would people set a seat at a table for a child that, whose mom's not home? And I said, well, because they wanted to make sure she didn't feel like she had nowhere to go because she was hungry. We should just cut that out. No one will relate to that. And it was like, I'm like, like these little tiny nuances. I'm like, it's not even racial. Like that has to do with economics. That's not even about being Black or not. Like people who've had food insecurity understand other people in their communities who help them, be it the person at school who gave them an extra helping or the kid at school that gave them their apple. Like there was this moment when I was like, I went to private school. There was a moment when I was like, you just have never met anyone who's, you're like missing, and I said something because I'm from LA. I said something really like nasty back. I was just like, because I knew something about like the guy's, family was in a music family. I was like, I don't want to listen to like folk music. Like that doesn't mean like that music isn't valuable. Like just because you don't like it doesn't, But and in the end, one of the things that ended up happening is everyone was like, why aren't we hearing more? Every time she started singing gospel, like it got cut off, and I was like. Everyone, that was kind of the soul of the piece, and it was cultural insensitivity that they were trying to, like, lack of a better word, whitewash it. It was like they were trying to make it more palatable to white people because we don't understand this. We need to make it more understandable. And I was like, well, actually, if we do the reverse and make it so people see more of the culture, if you see more of her uncomfortable, you see more inside of this person's, then what you don't understand, you'll understand more. You'll understand more about her by understanding, hey, like, I don't get this person and they're a YouTuber and whatever, but then you say, oh, wait, 3 years ago she was food insecure. Then you'll be more sensitive. You'll have more empathy than you will if you cut out that part and say, why is she this way? You know what I mean? Like, that those are the things that people are going to relate to across every race because you've never been that way. You're like,
right.
And so, I have different personalities. So I'm like pushing back. But then also as a Black woman, then I'm starting to get insecure. And I'm like, now I'm like this angry woman charging through and being like, no. And I know that's hard to be the only person in the room. I was once told when I worked at Nike by my boss, women like us, we're always the only one who says no in the room and we get held back. She goes, I would turn around in these meetings and I'd be like, am I the only one who's gonna like, and I'd be an assistant. I'd be like, not like, and that is really not unfortunate. And I hope that these are things that are changing. And so when you're a person in power, be it a director, I found on my Ford spot, like there was a PA that I was like, this kid's I was like, you sit next to me. You're getting everything right. Everyone else, that kid, get him over here. He's getting everything right. But I was like, you have to keep your eyes open and you have to empower people and you have to, you've got to, that benefits yourself to see who's got like stuff happening, but also it protects you to listen to what people are saying. And even if they're like, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but something feels weird about this, you've got to trust when someone feels weird about it. Even if it's like, the person passing out food, they're like, something doesn't feel weird about it. And like, you're like, what doesn't feel weird? Like something doesn't feel weird. Okay, let's stop. Like the craft service person says something's weird. It's like, what feels weird? Because that's a gift for someone to raise their hand. It's a gift for them to say, stop. And then all of a sudden you're like, you don't have the person saying I was in the meeting with the Kendall Jenner thing going, I knew that was a bad idea. It's like,
right.
And you can't be mad at them because that's actually your fault that they didn't feel right.
Exactly.
Like you can't be mad that you cost us. Why didn't you feel comfortable? It's like,
right.
Like,
you have to have enough. You have to have enough people in the room. You know, if you're at an editorial company, you have to have enough editors and enough people around to create a spectrum of voices so that you can check yourself just even naturally in your own working experience. You know, and that goes all the way down the line. That goes to being edit room, that goes to being, you know, director and looking at other directors and looking at work. You know, you have to have all of these voices to just say, hey, I cut it in this way, or I'm thinking about this, does this make sense? Or I have these questions. You have to be able to have that open dialogue. And you can't do that if you're constantly only surrounded by people who look like you.
Yeah. And a question isn't like a threat. You know what I mean? Like someone saying like you can be like, hey, I once had a boss say to me, he's like, hey, there's a weird like shot in here of like girls, they were showering outside in Hawaii. And he's like, is it a gratuitous shot of girls showering? And I was like, they're surfers, they're just like rinsing off. And he was like, okay, it's fine. He's like, I'm a man, I just noticed it. And I was like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And maybe I was wrong or maybe I was right. There's nothing wrong with someone asking, right? And at least you have accountability on like, I owned that and I was asked a question and I can own the answer to it. You know what I mean? And that's fair to ask.
I once was given a great, or it was in a lecture series I actually delivered. It was our CEO, Kevin, stood up and told us that one of the most important things that an ally can do is to be the second to support. So if somebody raises their hand and they say something and they're shy and they're in a room of people, you know, who may not look like them, a room of people, you know, and they stand up, the opportunity is to be the second, to back that person. And that role in and of itself is a very important one as it relates to these conversations.
Yeah.
Right, because then you're the person who has already been granted authority, lending that authority to someone who doesn't have it yet.
Not in a position of authority. You know, you can be a junior manager yourself, but just having somebody else stand in support, you know, of the original flag.
Yeah. So I think maybe the last thing I'd like to end on is, you know, we're in a moment, hopefully. Do any of you have any advice for people out there who are hoping to use this time to leverage this opportunity to make as much change as they can in their own organizations?
Keep ringing the bell.
Right. And
just keep going.
Yeah. And I would say that whether it's for your internal, the people who are behind the camera, or even cast, you know, give yourself time to find people. I know a lot of times we're working on quick timelines and we got to get it done. But people are out there. You know, we have a diverse country, and really believe that you can, and don't give up on it.
And also don't act like, my biggest pet peeve is like, you're acting like you're doing people favors. Like, you're not doing anyone a favor. Like, people have earned their spots. They're just being seen. So like, you know, people know the difference of you being like, so here's an opportunity. It's like, no, like, it's just like a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people just want to work. They don't want like an opportunity. Like it's really insulting. So I think like in your brain, like, recognize that you're giving people work and work they've earned. And if you're going to hire somebody for their work and their experience and like, you know, like I said, our life experience and what we bring, you know, Zhu's family and all the things he brings, but being a father and all that life that he's got, then like, trust it and like, don't cut it off after you've given us the opportunity. So like, give people work and let them do their jobs.
Another opportunity is to, you know, to ensure that you're tracking your numbers. So for, you know, for an agency or for corporate partners, you know, holding yourself to a higher standard, but also keeping track of these numbers in very detailed ways. Not only, you know, the percentage of people you hire, but the percentage of people that you promote, the percentage of the attrition rates. So being able to keep these numbers and track these numbers and being transparent with these numbers ensures that, you know, the organization continues to move forward and that it remains, you know, an important topic that's being addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some good comments in. Okay.
I was gonna say, just don't mislabel people. Let them self-identify, talk to them, have an open dialogue, because the last thing that any of us want to be is mislabeled.
There's a couple good comments here in the chat. People who are watching online, I think, are pretty relevant. Erica says, give work, not an opportunity. And Renee says, make sure that people don't feel like you're only asking for their input when diversity is on the table, like in this particular moment. Maybe this moment ends, but you should still be talking to the same people or reaching out for their input.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
True.
And I think I'm really glad that we had this conversation and that we are having this conversation, but I hope that these kinds of conversations continue to happen, both at events like this, but also, in Zoom boardrooms, around the country, even after the hashtags are no longer trending.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Thanks, everyone, so much. This was a really great talk. Can we just go around and everyone say who you are again, say goodbye? Kenyessa, please.
Kenyessa McMahon. Thank you guys so much for letting me be here, talk, ramble.
Tamara?
Tamara Gardelis, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have us on.
Zhu Bui, thank you very much for including me this morning.
Pamala?
Hey, Pamala Buzik from Free the Work.
And I'm Ishan Sherwood at Ad Age. See ya.
Bye.